our life depends on this water. The diversity of the water makes us healthier and happy people. It's quite significant locally to the people of Coral because it's really their way of life. They are using the Southern Lagoon area for their daily subsistence and for small gas economy. Whenever there's a free time, your dad or your grandfather take you out, and that's a part of the character education, part of the teaching, to be able to harvest and support your family.
Aside from the beauty, we had so many things. Fish and so many different kinds of corals, sea urchins, clams, everywhere. And yes, I think we big impact during the El Nino La Nina event back in 1998. It was a pretty devastating because it's really nothing that people remember of that sort. You see these corals and it look dark, like black holes, like it's just big caves. Right. Although it's not, it's just dead ones. If you dive there, it just looks terrible. It looks pretty bad. The color is terrible. Everything doesn't look good. According to our scientists, it's anywhere between 40 and 80% mortality, depending on the species. Biggest blow to Palauan thinking is that we tried very hard to save our reefs, our resources, and we've always been proud of our community management and our tradition of being very good conservationists. The bleaching gave us a very big message that we cannot hide from the global change. So it completely changed the thinking that maybe we can't only do something ourselves as the local. We need to participate in bigger global initiatives on coral protection.
Rod Sam has been studying bleaching since 1990.
I went to Palau in 1999, 1 year after the mass bleaching event. I wanted to find out from the scientists there where corals had died and where they had survived. It turns out that our observations in Palau have helped people to change their understanding about mass bleaching and how to respond.
All the fringing reefs on the west coast are usually very turbid, right, because of the land and the rivers. Right. It's not, the water there is not really clear. And if we look at our spot check data, the best reefs are the fringing reefs, and those were from the west coast of Palau.
Yim Nang's observations coincided with my hypothesis that cloudy waters might help screen corals from the damaging effects of ultraviolet light that, when combined with hot water, cause corals to bleach and sometimes to die. Next, Yim took me to one of his study sites in the Rock Islands at Nico Bay called Reef 29. Here he showed me a reef that was rich in coral diversity and luxuriant in growth. He felt that shading from the steep, high island and overhanging vegetation had protected the corals from bleaching.
This whole bay is just very unique and very diverse. With the shading of this, because this is the rock island, so right, it's always shaded.
So the key thing is the width of this ledge under the overhang and how far out it extends. And if I understand from you, the wider it is, the more coral survives.
We have a couple more sites like this site. We have the Tao, also in the Rock Islands. The corals there are still doing really well. We also have the site in Maralong, the Pat Reef in Maralong, right, where we have good coral cover there and good lot of young recruits. Our best area for recruitment is outside
on the barrier.
On the barrier reef. That we have good recruitment there. Usually don't have good coral cover like the Pat Reefs or fringings, but yet that's where you find most of the young recruits. The shallow area is a lot more corals, a lot more diversity than on the deep areas. Basically, there's not, most of the corals in the deep area is just dead corals and rubble, and it seems like recovery is starting to go down, but it hasn't reached like 10 meters.
We found other areas around Palau that showed resistance to mass bleaching. Lighthouse Reef, for example, has stands of Anacropora and other corals that seem to thrive despite the hot water, probably because they had developed tolerance to the harsh conditions of shallow water and exposure at low tides.
Close to the islands, we know that people have an impact on the land and things like that. But in the northern atoll, really nothing. And everything was devastated by the global warming. The message again hit home that we can't escape the global change. I think the process that we started initially were really communities trying to protect their own local reefs. Unfortunately, with the bleaching, that really changed things. It's not only that we get some of the impacts coming outside of the village boundaries, it's coming from outside, such as the global warming. And so with that, we had to make some changes in our thinking, that rather than just thinking about the human and village to village network, we need to think about the science, how they're all interconnected, because it's something that we have no control over. And so this is where now we need to look for a better way to save the coral reefs, something that we're able to maybe provide for the local needs, but for the whole biodiversity and whole national goals.
I'm really having faith with our young scientists. We do have a good group of guys at Big Creek. I'm pretty sure, really they're going to give us whatever necessary for us to protect the biodiversity in this region. At the same time, we give them opportunity to complete the studies. So we're also very interested to see the result of that.
We want to look at the hardiness of the corals, so we're completely changing the thinking, and that's why we led to thinking that, okay, now we have these areas, we need to look at the science, we need to look at the legislation, and so we have a legislation now pending in Congress, which will put it all together on a national level. National level will connect them, the management will be left to the communities and villages, but the science, we will have to look at the best sites for Palau and the most resilient areas. Where are they and how they are connected currents wise, where the source and sinks are. So we need to really look at that deeply.